Humans have been playing with fire for a very long time. First, we learned to harness it to help us survive, and then we turned that same fire into weapons to destroy each other. But no matter how much we've progressed since then, we still seem to be attracted to the combination of power and destruction. So much so that we almost destroyed ourselves several times, which is what this video will cover. Since the invention of nuclear weapons, there have been at least 13 times when an accidental nuclear war almost happened. This is not an exaggeration. Some of these cases were well publicized, while others are only now being declassified. For example, the world knows about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but only now are we learning about an event that happened just 6 months before that. On January 17, 1966, a United States Air Force B-52 Stratofortress bomber was carrying out a routine patrol over the Mediterranean Sea. It was taking part in a NATO operation called Power Flight 76. The bomber left its base in Britain early in the morning and headed south toward Spain. Its mission was to fly 250 miles off the Spanish coast and back, but the plane never returned. The B-52 and its 4 hydrogen bombs simply vanished. The crew of the B-52 was made up of 3 men, 2 pilots and 1 navigator. After they completed their first leg of the journey, the plane started heading back to base. It was now flying 200 miles off the coast of Spain. But soon after, the controllers lost contact with the plane. They sent out search parties, but the plane had vanished without a trace. It would be 81 days later that they would find out what had happened, and when they did, it almost caused another world war. Now, if you're wondering why the plane was carrying 4 hydrogen bombs, that's because the Cold War was still going strong. Back then, the Soviets and the Americans were playing a deadly game of chicken. Both sides knew that the end of the world could come from a nuclear attack at any moment, so they kept their bombers on high alert, often sending them on unnecessary flights to make sure the other side didn't make any moves. That's why the B-52 was patrolling off the coast of Spain. It was likely looking out for Soviet submarines or aircraft, but that doesn't explain why the plane disappeared. Well, according to reports, the B-52 flew into a storm and was never seen again. The plane probably got caught in a spiral and crashed into the water. In fact, wreckage from the plane was only found 11 years later. But that's not the whole story. You see, the 4 bombs carried by the plane were extremely dangerous. They were hydrogen bombs, aka thermonuclear bombs. These are different from regular atomic bombs. Instead of just causing damage within a city, a hydrogen bomb can wipe out entire countries. In 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. It was a plutonium-239 gun-type nuclear weapon. To this day, nobody knows how much radiation was released during the explosion, but we do know that it leveled 63% of the city and killed around 80,000 people. That same year, they also dropped another bomb on Nagasaki. This was a plutonium-239 implosion-type nuclear weapon. It leveled 66% of the city and killed around 40,000 people. Both of these were just regular atomic bombs. A single one of those killed over 100,000 people. Now imagine 4 of them exploding. So obviously, the Americans couldn't just let these bombs sink to the bottom of the sea. They launched a massive search operation. 29 US Army ships combed through the waters for the missing bomb. But the Americans were in a race against time. If the bomb sank, it might explode automatically. The hydrogen bombs used by the US Air Force back in the 1960s had a self-destruct mechanism. It was designed to activate if the plane crashed, but there was a chance that it wouldn't work. Plus, whoever found the bomb could try to reverse engineer it. The Americans couldn't take any chances. They sent out underwater demolition teams to blow up the bottom of the ocean, literally, but even that was easier said than done. The hydrogen bomb was huge. It was 10 feet long and 27 inches thick. It was coated in a rubber-like material called hypolon. This was supposed to protect the bomb from any external damage, but it also meant that the bomb couldn't be blown up easily. Their only option was to get inside the bomb and detonate it manually. And that's exactly what they did. Using remote-controlled submarines, they managed to reach the bottom of the sea and attach explosives to the bomb. Then all they had to do was detonate the explosives remotely, but even that wasn't easy. The explosives had to be attached in such a way that the bomb didn't explode prematurely. But in the end, they managed to retrieve all 4 bombs without any of them exploding. After the incident, the US military conducted a court of inquiry to determine what exactly happened. The conclusion was that bad weather and pilot error caused the plane to crash. The pilots were deemed dead, and they gave the families a decent compensation package, and that would have been the end of it. But it wasn't. There was a book published in 2006, it was called The Last Days of the B-52, and it claimed that the crash was no accident. According to the author, the pilots purposely crashed the plane to avoid it being captured by the Soviets. But this theory was later disproven. The pilots really did lose control of the plane due to bad weather. Still, the story doesn't end there. You see, the Americans weren't the only ones who had a close call with a nuclear bomb. The Soviets also had their fair share of mishaps. Throughout the years, the Pentagon has documented 32 nuclear weapon accidents. These are referred to as broken arrows. Most of them occurred between 1950 and 1980. They include planes crashing, bombs being dropped, bombs blowing up by accident, and even bombs being stolen. For example, on December 3, 1950, an American B-29 Superfortress was flying over North Carolina when suddenly the autopilot system malfunctioned. This caused the plane to drop one of its 2 hydrogen bombs. Thankfully, the bomb failed to detonate and a recovery team was dispatched. But that's not the crazy part. The recovery team somehow lost the bomb. It was gone for 45 days before they finally found it. Another incident occurred on January 23, 1958. 2 F-89C Scorpion jet fighters collided mid-air. One of them lost a nuclear weapon. It remained missing for 2 years until they finally located it. In September 1961, an Air Force sergeant stole a nuclear bomb. He walked into a restricted area at the height of the Cold War and stole the bomb. He wanted to deliver it to Fidel Castro. Thankfully, he was caught before he could do anything, but not all of them had such happy endings. On March 17, 1954, a B-47 bomber was flying over Savannah, Georgia. It was practicing a low-level navigational exercise. Suddenly, the plane lost altitude and hit some trees. It was so low that it clipped a telephone line. That caused the nuclear weapon to separate from the rest of the bomb. It fell into a quarry and exploded. There was no damage to life or property, but the radiation spread far and wide. In fact, it contaminated an entire town. The townspeople had no idea that their water supply was now radioactive. But when the US government bought out their town, they started to protest. The government tried to hush them up, but it didn't work. A major investigation ensued and everyone found out what had happened. Now, thankfully, nothing terrible happened to the townspeople. But this goes to show just how many close calls we've had. Humans have found new and creative ways to mess up. Today, most of the world's nuclear weapons are kept in storage silos. That way, they're safe from things like planes crashing. But we've also developed ways to protect them from hackers, because today, the biggest threat to nuclear weapons isn't rogue nations or terrorists, it's computer viruses. If a virus were to infect the system controlling America's nuclear missiles, it could potentially trigger an automatic launch. Luckily, programmers are a lot smarter than you think, but that's a topic for another video. Now, speaking of nuclear weapons, here's one that you should watch next. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. Everyone's support motivates us to keep bringing you the best content. And as always, thanks for watching.